All right. Can everyone hear me well?
Yep.
Perfect. Hopefully people online can hear me as well. Feel free to type in the chat if you can't, and someone will interrupt me, I guess. Yeah. Hi. Thanks for joining in. That too on Friday evening. And I believe you have a holiday on Monday, so definitely appreciate you all joining here. My name is Advitya Gemawat. Not recently, Bill, depends on how you look at it, but I graduated from UC San Diego in 2021, majoring in data science. And since then, I've been working as a machine learning engineer at Microsoft in the Boston area. And just to provide a bit of background there as well, at Microsoft for the first 2 years, I was in a rotation program called the Microsoft AI Development Acceleration Program, or MATAP. It's a 2-year rotation program where I got to work with 4 different orgs across the company for 6 months each on different ML projects. And then I got to choose my team. So I recently graduated from that program in June. And since then, I've been working with a specific team in the areas of responsible AI and AI safety. So building AI that is fair and reliable and doesn't have bias, things like that. So yeah, today it's pretty much just a casual talk on just my college journey, how things went, what mistakes I did, what I learned from them, things like that. And just a few perspectives just from my personal experiences on how you can potentially land in the AI industry and how you can pretty much distinguish yourself from the rest of the crowd. So hopefully it'll be fun. So for the agenda, I kind of divided this into 3 clusters. The first one is kind of just chatting about my college journey and in retrospect, what I should have done or whatever I learned. I'll be touching a bit upon this area of ML engineering, which kind of seems like a hybrid between typical software engineering and data science work. Then we'll go to the next 2 sections related to how do you navigate this job search process and how do you actually do this at scale? Following which, I'll kind of transition into how do you build an external-facing brand for yourself that people outside the university, recruiters and hiring managers, can actually look at and try to gauge how you're as an applicant and try to see how credible you might be in the industry, things like that. Yeah, so kind of a light start. So 2017 is when I arrived at UC San Diego. I was an international student from India. So first time in the US, first time in UC San Diego, first time away from home. So quite an exciting experience. Lots of interesting cultural challenges, lots of language challenges, things like that. But yeah, I just felt like I was thrown into a Disneyland, right? Of all these opportunities and really friendly and helpful people to explore things with and learn from, right?
What were the language challenges, like the California accent, or
just English in general, personally, but yeah, also the California accent. Yeah. Yeah, it took a while for me to also get that down after I came to Massachusetts. Yeah. So as for my initial college journey, it started with a funny story because I applied to UCSD with an engineering sciences major. I got into that major. 10 days after my admission offer, that major got canceled. I have no idea why to this day. And they just automatically gave me structural engineering. I'm like, fine, great. So I learned about what structural engineering was, seems kind of specialized, but also multidisciplinary. I came into college, took the first class in structural engineering, but I couldn't see myself in that area. And because I really liked math as a subject, and I had never programmed before, but I knew that computer science was important, I kind of wanted to marry the 2 disciplines in terms of what I was good at versus what the industry might require, or might find very useful, right? So I ultimately boiled down my major options to 2 options. The first was a joint degree in math and CS. The second was data science, which was this new major that got introduced when I was a freshman. So I pretty much just binge watched a lot of online courses, tried to do some programming activities as part of those courses. and spoke to a lot of people, recruiters, upperclassmen, professors, etc., and ultimately decided on data science. So UCSD has a quarter system, and in the second quarter of my freshman year, I took the first data science class, and I didn't do well. So it was kind of a rocky start for me in a new major with a new set of classes, and me not doing super well, which created a bit of self-doubt on, am I even going to survive in this major, right, if I'm not doing super well? One of the biggest learnings that I had in my freshman year was how utilizing office and tutor hours absolutely changed the game for me in terms of looking at classes. It gave me very specific perspectives on how the professor is looking at the class, what topics they think are important, and it actually got me the opportunity to interact with tutors and to actually know how they grade these assignments, what are they looking for, and how to give them what they want, and what is considered important and critical. And that also saved so much of my time in terms of just speculating what a question might mean versus just clarifying it from the tutors and trying to get their perspective on what they want us to learn and deliver on. And this pretty much helped me get good grades in the least amount of time possible so that I can actually save all of that time for opportunities outside the classroom. Another interesting learning was that during the first year, I just went to a whole lot of events of all kinds, different kinds of professional events, different kinds of people talking in different areas. And I tried to just listen to them and extract common patterns from those events. One of the common patterns that I gathered was that branding and networking is critically important for building an identity of yours and building a brand that is unique, that is recognized, that is credible enough, and that gets your foot into the door in terms of actually getting that interview and potentially getting that opportunity. And we'll touch more upon that as well. So after kind of declaring my major and taking the first class, so I really just got to dabble into experiences outside the classroom from the get-go. I started to take online courses because I didn't know how else to really build my profile without any programming knowledge. So I took a lot of online courses. I got into a student-run startup that I volunteered for in winter quarter of my freshman year. And that was the first experience where I just got a lot of data science experience, and I learned a lot of things in a very short amount of time in terms of how to go about the data science lifecycle, all from sourcing data to analyzing it, transforming it, building models, etc. And the kinds of learnings that I had there were learnings that were even useful for me in sophomore year and junior year of college, when those concepts would be introduced in our classes. And I would already be aware of those concepts because I had already used them practically, which also saved a lot of time down the road. In the summer after my freshman year, I also got a data science internship in India at a large financial company. So I also really like to see how that organization functioned, got to apply data science in the domain. And towards my sophomore year, I landed a research role in machine learning systems related to building systems that are faster, cheaper, more scalable for ML applications, which turned out to be the best decision of my college because that introduced me to a network that actually led me to my current job straight out of college. But there's one common thread that I want to touch upon in all of these experiences. All of these experiences made me realize the power of networking. I got the first opportunity because I knew a friend that worked there. I got my first internship, quite honestly, because my dad had connections in that company, and they were able to get me an interview. I got that research opportunity because the professor that I worked with knew my brother-in-law. They were college friends. And so I have no shame in admitting that I really tried to tap into my network to get those initial opportunities. By also kind of networking and getting those opportunities, I got to build my profile. I gradually got to build a unique identity for myself whenever I would talk to people. And by having a brand that was, say, documented on LinkedIn, or say me going to events and talking to other people and telling them about myself, I saw that more opportunities started getting generated for me. In this picture, I'm actually giving a data science talk in the company that I had interned at, just sharing my perspectives on this new major and how this curriculum might evolve in the field of data science in general. That also taught me a lot of great soft skills, right? And I also got opportunities where the data science department would feature student stories and things like that. And I volunteered. And just by kind of surfacing myself in front of others, I was kind of able to land these opportunities, both on the technical side and soft side, which initially all came from me knowing people. Oh, yeah. Great catch. Thank you. All right. Yeah. But obviously, like, college journeys are not really ideal all the way, right? So really the first taste of rejections that I started to get was starting my sophomore year. So data science was a very new major. Pretty much all opportunities were reserved for master's or PhD degree holders. We were pretty much told by the student community that there's like virtually no internships for us because we are not master's students. And I was so arrogant that I refused to believe that. I'm like, I don't believe this. We're doing a data science undergrad. A master's degree is 2 years, an undergrad degree is 4 years. My entire profile is very tailored towards data science opportunities and those set of skills. I don't see why I can't get a job. I can't get an internship. So I just outright refused to believe that. And I was like, I'm particularly going to aim for data science jobs. Well, it turns out I got no internship in the US after my second year. And in the process, I had to go through hundreds of rejections across LinkedIn messages, referrals, trying to land interviews, but just not getting an opportunity. A very critical learning that I had was I was simply immature in terms of dealing with the job search process. I got into the recruiting process of a very fast-paced, of like a company that was growing very fast. And I was also able to clear initial interviews for them. So I just got really confident that, oh, I'll definitely get the internship. But I kind of got rejected in the second stage of it. So in a way, I kind of really slowed down my job search while I was interviewing for that company because I was overconfident that I would get it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket because these things are not fully in our control. There's a lot of factors inside a company within the recruiting cycle across a lot of stakeholders, including recruiters and hiring managers, that don't really make this process in your control. And that leads me to my second big learning, which is do not stop your job search until you actually physically sign your offer. It's possible a company can say yes to you, and for whatever reason, in or outside of your control, any unforeseen circumstance, that offer could still be canceled or rescinded. It is still considered as at-will employment. So don't stop your search until you actually sign your offer. Unless you get an offer letter in your hand, everything that the company says, in a way, is essentially just words. Also think about a couple backup options. I'm not necessarily saying to over-index on them, maybe because the kind of person I am, I would just really just try to focus on my plan A and really just try to go all the way to get those to achieve that plan. But also think about backups where if you don't get an opportunity, what will be your plan for learning and for building your profile? In my case, a backup that I had was I would read a book on the Linux command line that a PhD student that I was working with recommended to me so that I can automate processes and learn about the command line and use those kinds of tools. I ended up reading that book and also interning in India in another company. But make sure to also think about backups and what your plan is going to be moving forward. It's still not the end of the world if you don't get an internship. And then something unusual happened. While I was trying to look for opportunities during summer of my sophomore year, basically for junior year, I reached out I got connected to a person who was an alumni of my college, and they were actually hiring data science interns in their company. And that was a graduate level role. But they found my profile compelling enough where they got me an exception to interview for them. I really didn't see this coming, and I didn't ask for it either. But because they were looking for a person and they felt my profile still matched the skills and the requirements, they still tried to loop me into the process. Turns out that not only did I get that opportunity, after I joined their company, they actually told me that they then modified the requirements of their job requisitions to actually start accepting undergrads for their data science role moving forward. After a point, it felt like this is more than just me getting a graduate level role as an undergrad, as an international student, and probably thinking about, okay, it is still possible for us to get DS roles, and kind of debunking that myth against it. But this doesn't just seem about me. This seemed more magnified impact that also kind of helped others in some way. Because after they modified the requirements, another friend of mine from my college, same major, also got into that exact same internship program. Which leads me to a couple of very interesting learnings. That first, if you just truly believe in yourself and you just keep trying, it is still possible that you can generate opportunities for yourself. I didn't really have any role model or anyone else to look at in terms of getting data science internships at the undergrad level. But I still felt that from whatever I was hearing, whatever kind of work they were doing, I felt that I could get that. And after a point, like I would just try to craft my profile in such a detailed way, focusing on the most minutest of details to ideally make it irresistible for them to just kind of say no to me, or at least give me a chance. At least that was the philosophy that I would try to follow when I would craft my profile or reach out to them or provide them my resume, things like that. Tap into your alumni network. So I would use the LinkedIn alumni tool all the time. For any job that I was interested in, I would reach out to alumni from my college, and I would introduce myself saying that I'm interested in that role and what makes me good for that role, and I'd love to discuss and things. And your alumni are a lot more likely to help you. This is also applicable for any other communities that you may be a part of, like fraternities. Another point that I really wanted to drive here is recognize that your decisions are not just your own. I am pretty much guaranteeing to every single person sitting in the room here and online that there is someone out there who is inspired by you and you don't even know about it. Most likely, you will never know about it because they just may not tell you. It is important to realize that your decisions are bigger than yourself because someone out there is either looking at or even monitoring your decisions, looking at you still as an inspiration and thinking that this person seems to know what they're doing, this person seems to be doing pretty great. If they made this decision, so should I. Recognize that one right decision from your side can unblock people who are following you or who are inspired by you into taking that decision, and vice versa. Recognize that a blunder in your decision-making without correcting it can also potentially impact others who may be taking similar kinds of decisions or going to similar kinds of pathways by looking at your journey. Recognize the broader impact of your decisions when you're trying to take decisions. Because it was a radical decision for me to just go against everyone else, against the claim that we couldn't get specific kinds of internships at the undergrad level, right? It kind of brings me to my the final times of my struggle. So for my internship after junior year of college, I got to work with a tech company, had an amazing experience, and turns out I was kind of ineligible for getting a return offer due to my visa status and my and pretty much my college status and things like that. And this is something that was definitely a lapse in decision-making on my side, that I did not ask them those tough questions when I actually came down to negotiating my offers and picking up an offer. I just picked up that offer because I felt that that project was really cutting edge, which it was, but I just let that desire of mine to pursue that project just kind of overpower all the other more pragmatic factors in my case, where the entire point of an internship is to get a full-time job. COVID had just kicked in. This was 2020. The economy was very uncertain. And I knew that I still had to get a job in order to utilize my work authorization with my student visa after I graduate. And this ineligibility for getting an offer basically put me down to basically like this rabbit hole of just starting job search from scratch. And so over the next 9 months of peer rejections, I applied to, 692 positions, literally thousands of code messages on LinkedIn to reach out to people, alumni, people in those companies, trying to get referrals. Because I reached out to, and I actually followed my metrics of how I did job search. I reached out to 10 to 15 people per position for a referral. And so 692, or say almost 700 times 10 to 15, I would estimate about 7,000 to 8,000 messages over the 9 months of me reaching out to people, trying to get referrals, trying to get info calls, things like that. I got quite a bit of interviews as well, because after a point, I kind of figured out how to craft my profile in a way that it catches the attention of the recruiters and hiring managers. But just a whole bunch of rejections all the way. After a point, I got to learn that my technical skills weren't an issue, my soft skills were. I would be talking really fast in my interviews, such that the interviewer may not fully catch what I'm saying. This was partly also a cultural difference. Back in India, we had, or at least in my experience, I had the mindset of speaking in a very fast way and trying to articulate all the potential answers to a question so that I appear very smart and know what I'm talking about. That's not how it works here. In here, when you try to slow down, when you try to approach a path of problem solving, when you're okay with the fact that you may not know the answer, but you're talking about the process and not the destination, this kind of a way of communicating in this country seems to appear as more articulate. And so it kind of took me actually mock interviewing with my friends and physically recording myself how I was talking, which was painful, of course, to actually figure that out. And as soon as I closed that gap in my performance, I straight up got 3 back-to-back offers, which was quite a weird transition from how the past 9 months had really gone for me. Really, the major learning that I had was identify these performance gaps through continuous feedback loop with your friends, whether you mock interview with them or someone else in college or using online websites like pramp.com. Continually identify performance gaps and engage in this continuous feedback loop and just try to close as many gaps as you find as you identify them. So that was kind of a broad kind of version of my college story. After I got my offers, then I kind of accepted the offer at Microsoft, and then I joined that after college, and I'm an ML engineer there. And oftentimes I get asked, what does an ML engineer really do? It seems like this hybrid of software engineering and data science. Pretty much what I personally experienced, and bear in mind that nothing that I say in this talk represents my employer in any way, just my personal experience. I have to say this for disclaimer. There's pretty much 2 impact pillars that I personally got to observe and learn about the role of an ML engineer. This can be one about building infrastructure to enable large-scale machine learning in the first place. This can have a couple components related to putting on the hat of a data engineer, for example, trying to create data pipelines to bring it to a place where data scientists can analyze it, looking at their modeling scripts, looking at the kinds of model they're using, looking at practical engineering constraints around that, like latency and performance and things, trying to even optimize their code wherever needed, trying to use the best kind of hardware, the best APIs, best practices, things like that. In some cases, even ensuring things like reproducibility, setting up experiments at scale, hyperparameter tuning, various different kinds of things in the process. And of course, this can vary upon company, vary by company, and vary by responsibilities. But you're essentially building all the surrounding infrastructure to actually bring in a model from a Python module or a notebook and actually host it to the real world, where it can actually be served to consumers. That's one broad pillar that I identified. The second interesting broad pillar that I also learned about was it can also be about building software to improve the process of machine learning itself. The two examples where, the two places where I got to experience it was, one was when I was pursuing research in college related to building a system that would improve the process of machine learning itself, or that would try to do machine learning or parts of the process in a more scalable way so that you save time and money. I also kind of got to experience this after college, where I saw that currently I work in the area of responsible AI. And so by building tools which can kind of flag a model for any issues or biases, et cetera, that they may have, and kind of flagging those issues so that they can be corrected before they pushed out to the real world, is also kind of another part to improve this process of machine learning itself with the software that you're building. So one, building infrastructure to enable this machine learning process in the first place. Second, building stuff that improves this process in the first place. So that kind of concludes the initial first part of my talk, just chatting about my college journey, couple learnings, and what I personally learned from the role of how an ML engineer may operate. So I have kind of also partially made the first part of the talk about me because I was talking about my experiences. Now I kind of want to make this more about you, if possible. Really, the center point of how I would look at my job search would be in terms of an infrastructure. I've shown a lot of text in my presentation right now. Let me try to switch it up. And let me try to talk in data science language. So I would start with my data sources, and I would take these job alert tools like Google Job Alerts and LinkedIn Job Alerts. I would have some queries where I would attach Boolean searches and try to plug in a lot of keywords to get specific results on the latest jobs that may have been released. The trigger would be one day. So these queries would kind of run every single day on both of these tools, and the outputs of the query would be emailed to me. Another data source that I considered was in-person events, where after I would be at a career fair or at an info event, I'd make sure to get their LinkedIn or get their email to make sure I have a communication channel with them and try to follow up with them after the event. And so Gmail was where I did a lot of data cleaning and feature engineering, trying to identify first positions that I was interested in, trying to identify their features like the job title, company, location, etc. I would put that cleaned data in a database, in this case, Google Sheets. Then I would actually use this data set to train my model, or I should say models, or I should probably even say message templates, which are pretty much a whole variety of templates for different scenarios. And I would plug in the relevant context from that data into those templates. And I would deploy those templates or serve my model on LinkedIn when I would reach out to people. And they might think that the message is very, very tailored to them, but it's all part of my grand plan of just having a whole variety of templates and trying to really automate this process at scale. And based on their responses, based on whether they'd like to give me a referral or have conversations, whatever, I would try to have a feedback loop which would go back to my data so I can update the status of those referral requests, and even try to update my model if needed to improve my templates. I haven't even shown all the parts of my job search infrastructure here, but I want to communicate that it is critically important to express your job search process down to a formula or down to a well-defined sequence of steps that you can do daily at scale. There's also some auxiliary artifacts that I would use. Google Calendar really saved my life in college. From academic deadlines to getting milk from the grocery store, I would pretty much document everything in there. Made my life a lot easier, streamlined everything. I also use this tool called Calendly, which would automatically sync with my calendar for booking appointment slots with me. There would be situations where, say, 3 companies would reach out to me during a week, asking me to interview with them, asking me for time windows. It's not practically possible for me to email all of them and engage in a back and forth with what time works with you. I would just provide them my Calendly link, saying this syncs with my calendar, real-time availability. You can go and pick up a slot. Saves a lot of time and scales up the process. Another area related to job search is how do you balance your technical and soft skills when you're trying to communicate your impact on LinkedIn, but more so, even in person and especially in interviews. First of all, it's a logical fallacy to say technical versus soft skills. It's not either or. Recognize how you're doing on both fronts, recognize specific gaps, and start resolving all of those gaps. One great way that I found for both is mock interviews and recording your answers. Recording your answers is painful. I personally never did it until I got so desperate towards the end of my job search where I just wasn't able to figure out why I wasn't getting offers. Then I just felt the need to do that. But yeah, at least even mock interviewing with your friends, right? It really puts both of these skills to test at the same time, and you can kind of see how you're doing with both. But there is a relationship between technical and soft skills that I want to drive here, which is the lack of technical skills could be compensated with the right attitude, but not vice versa. I've had interviews where I would optimally solve lead code hard problems and still get rejected. I have had interviews where my technical performance was subpar. I would not finish the coding question, but I would still get passed to the next stage. It's not fully in my control, but it's a lot easier to teach someone technical skills than to teach someone soft skills. At least this is a perspective that companies can kind of consider while looking at applicants. Because there is standardization in technical skills. Technical skills are more well-defined compared to soft skills, compared to whether the person has the right attitude, compared to whether the person can work well in a team, compared to whether the person can actually take the hint of an interviewer and try to actually apply it in their problem and learn from it at the very least. Another interesting part in all this is don't feel alone. There have been people who have gone through the journey before you, and a lot of people who are quite helpful with like providing support. And so I feel like mentorship played a great role in my personal journey because they helped me gather intelligence about the job search process. You kind of need to realize job search is a game. And in order to play this game well, you need to understand how this game operates. What are the rules and bounds of the game? And how can you think outside the box to strategize and play this game well? Specific references, say, within a company or mentors that are working at target companies can get you very specific insights to really tailor your prep. Because they may be aware of how a company looks at hiring, when a company may be hiring, for what kinds of roles, what do they actually look for in an interview, what kinds of discussions really happen when they're trying to select candidates, what kinds of questions are they trying to ask, what is top of mind for them, and how do they evaluate your answers in a way where they document things about you and also make sure that they don't forget stuff after they have interviewed you, because they would interview a lot of people, right? Interesting point. Several positions may not even be released to the public. If there's a requisition in a specific team, it is possible that that team can start by looking for people internally. Saves sign-on bonus, saves a lot of cost hiring people externally. And so if your mentor has those kinds of connections within the company, and if they know those internal requisitions exist, and that team, the hiring team, is not able to find anyone, they can kind of let you know and perhaps even try to reach out to their network to see if they'd be open to hiring externally so that they can refer you to them. So they can unlock information that you may just not know about and may not have any way of knowing except from them. Try to get a team of Avengers, not just a single Iron Man. Different mentors can provide different kinds of insights related to your specific situation. And you can you can have an informal cadence with them whenever you need them, just trying to communicate to them what's top of mind for you and how they could help you in the best way and try and strike a balance. Yeah, so this kind of brings me to the final section for now. This is personally something that I'm very passionate about, which is how do you build an identity for yourself, which is external facing, which people can see outside of your university and which communicates your record, your impact, and your credibility and how you might potentially benefit their organization if you were to work with them. In other words, how do you even generate opportunities autopilot in some cases where people can even reach out to you first if they think your profile is compelling enough? So at least in my college, when I would reach out to people on LinkedIn, sometimes it would be very reassuring, to get positive feedback on your job search when you would reach out to people. And these were some positive results that, say, I got out of branding myself in a certain way and delivering my profile in a certain way, where some people would like my background. And so that's why they would provide me a referral. They would try to support me internally, which is very helpful to them. Sometimes I would even get rejected, but still try to keep that relationship in so that I could utilize that in the future. And that's also something that's very helpful, and you never know who might come to help you ultimately. Sometimes people might even reach out to your network without even letting you know. And it is reassuring where if you have a solid network and if people feel okay about you, that can sometimes help you in surprising ways. And turns out this helped me getting a referral. That was quite valuable for me. This was probably, one of the most groundbreaking pieces of feedback, in my opinion, where initially I got rejected from getting a referral because of their own reasons, which I fully respect. And after 9 months, they felt that the work that I was doing on my LinkedIn profile and posting about my experiences and videos and papers and things like that, they felt that I could be a valuable person for their company. And so a lot of these things can kind of crop up without you even knowing about it if you align yourself in that way. Customize every public-facing element about yourself. I am kind of asking you to be self-centered here. Even in social profiles, there are creator modes, which provide you with a follower count, which provides you with insights and things like that, and public-facing elements. You can try to utilize those. And we'll get into the first point in the upcoming slides as well. And start developing a habit of posting about your experiences. This is probably one of the harder things to really deal with as an undergrad. And so there's a way to get started with this without really needing to speculate what you want to post about. First, ChatGPT. They didn't really have ChatGPT when I was in college, but you can actually just prompt ChatGPT to say, generate some kind of a LinkedIn post or this template talking about this. It can generate all the connective glue of the message for you, and you can just inject whatever specific pieces of information you want to put about yourself, which is your own context. You can utilize other features such as scheduled send. Again, you can craft this into a process or a formula, and you can say have a scheduled send feature to release the post during some peak hour, which you may have observed, and try to have a regular cadence of posting about whatever you're doing. And this will start getting visibility in front of folks who are looking at your LinkedIn, because that's the next thing they look at after your resume. You don't really need to pressurize yourself about this. Just start by looking at how others are posting about things. It can be a technical achievement. It can even be something like, okay, you did a volunteering event where you got to learn some soft skills. It doesn't need to be very long either. Just a decent cadence of posting about your experiences and what you're learning will already set you well apart from the rest of the crowd. To give an example of kind of how I tried crafting my LinkedIn profile. So this profile of mine is 3 years old right now. So this is like my college LinkedIn. But at least what I tried to do is first, I tried to customize every little bit of detail and feature that I could do on the LinkedIn profile. I would try to maximize the time the viewer on my profile would spend on my platform. So I would want to have compelling things at the top that would actually say, hopefully motivate them to even scroll down on my profile. A LinkedIn profile is an extended version of your resume, and you can put in a lot more details here, which you may not be able to do in a resume. You can craft stories around here. So I would even craft stories, say, in my about section, where I would add in a personal touch, try to get them to scroll down even further. I would break down my experience set in a hook, a scope, and then business impact. So I would try to hook them in that, okay, this is a non-trivial opportunity. I would tell them the scope of the work that I was involved in, and then I would jump into business impact with metrics. And by utilizing these other features, like the featured link, for example, posting an article or a paper or some video presentation, or even just posting images from student orgs. I did model UN in college, so I would just post pictures. All of that really magnifies your visibility and just and really kind of increases your metrics in terms of the time that viewers are spending on your profile. You can even try creator mode. Even for platforms like Instagram or Facebook, you can also create separate creator profiles, I believe, which will surface a follower count, which will make your things public. And that also kind of helps, say, if there's a video, right? Posting that on different platforms can help still, say, people who might be more active on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or Instagram, even if they're your peers, to increase your metrics on those videos and things. You can even try an email signature, which is what I also tried playing around with. So this was my email signature from back in college. And I would just try to like include some bits of information, a little bit of clickbait, to be quite honest as well, but something that would at least kind of hook in their attention, and try to also put in some top details, some top links, so that they can, again, try to onboard to my profile. I would honestly even go so far as to look at my online presence. This is really getting into a self-centered or a narcissist stage here. But let me try to communicate like how this can potentially create impact. After the viewer would drop into my LinkedIn, then you have the opportunity to open a Pandora's box for them. You can provide whatever links on your profile, redirect them to wherever. If they make one click, they'll get to know even more info about you. So I would even look at my search results and try to monitor them and see what's really top here. So these are, again, this is also my search result from 3 years back. So not right now, because I wanted to highlight this from a college student perspective. So as a college student, say I had my LinkedIn profile at the top, and then I had a student feature on the UCSD website, which kind of would try to deliver that I was a recognized student in my college. Then I would have my GitHub. I personally haven't been very thrilled about GitHub profiles in general, because I would usually just work with organizations on real-world problems. But I have some research work on my GitHub So I thought, okay, sure, I guess it's fine for GitHub to appear here. They can still look at some of my work samples. And you know what? If a lot of this text is kind of making you hallucinate, just watch a video on the fourth option. And so by kind of looking at some of the top results, what are they leading into, making sure that the links that I want more so at the top are things that I'm kind of sharing out there in some way, whether it be LinkedIn or Facebook creator profiles and whatever. That would increase hits on pages related to me. And that would kind of, in fact, create this brand, which as soon as someone gets into from LinkedIn and then maybe clicks up a link, then they can have the opportunity to go into a rabbit hole about yourself and make you irresistible and completely distinguished from others. I kind of want to end on a lighter note. So I remember when we were discussing about the details of this presentation, and Chung had reached out to me, and he basically asked me, hey, like maybe you also include some stuff about the future of AI and data science and where things are going. Quite honestly, I'm still trying to really wrap my head around it. One very interesting thing about the AI industry is that things are developing at such an exponentially fast rate, in my opinion, that it just becomes harder to really stay on top of everything. And this is something that even I, as an early in career, is trying to figure out. There's this pretty interesting quote from Andrew Ng. Don't worry about it if you don't understand. It's also a pretty famous meme. But there's some kind of, I feel like there's some interesting philosophy behind this, where even if you don't fully understand something, there's no need to really pressurize yourself on it. Gradually take your time and try to learn whatever you can, whatever is relevant to you. And just bear in mind on how this AI industry is progressing and what it kind of requires. To elaborate more on this point, one philosophy that I would try to have in terms of working in this industry in the first place is we need to get comfortable with continuous intellectual discomfort. Kind of quoting, I guess, Satya Nadella from when he became the CEO of Microsoft, and I read this in an article where he said that this industry does not respect tradition. And I feel like that's quite true. The pace in which these things are growing right now, large language models seem to be quite a rage. I don't fully know how much of for how long is this going to go, if there's going to be other waves in the process. But at the very least, what I can at least try to do is try to at least learn about whatever latest is happening. I don't claim to be an expert, but at least I can try to continuously put myself in intellectually discomfort situations to try to be on top of things and try to continuously upgrade myself. Because that is a very critical requirement of the tech industry, and especially the AI industry, in my personal perspective. And it is also, I feel, quite important to be humble enough and recognize what we don't know, because that's how the desire to knowing about something will even come up. It's like the first step to solving a problem is recognizing that problem exists in the first place, right? So the first step to trying to know something, some concept, some area is recognizing you don't know that, recognizing all of those gaps so that you can at least start to learn about whatever you want at your own pace, maybe utilizing tools like ChatGPT to explain some things to you in a simple way or in the form of a haiku, whatever. And gradually just trying to dabble into the industry and see if this is of interest. Questions?